This was a situation we were trying to avoid with our F-150 Ford. We've had it almost 4 years to the day. We put 130 miles on it, just about. We were living full-time, traveling the country with it, and we bought it brand new, hoping that we could avoid this situation, and but that's not how it worked out. Our transmission started to slip when we were driving it down the road, and we've had some other issues with it misfiring. The ignition coil kept going out on it, and so at first we thought that was the problem, but then once it went from 10 to 1, I was like, oh man, the transmission, there's something wrong with it. And then to make the situation a little even worse, insult to injury, we just had it recently at the transmission shop, having it serviced and checked out to make sure that it runs well, and then we're not going to run into any issues with it at all. And that didn't end up being the case at all. So we spend $2,000 on one shop, $500 in another shop, and then the Amoco in Annaville was saying we needed a whole new transmission, which would then be another $8,000. So we were pretty distressed by this and didn't know what to do. It's not like we can just put this money out, but then we could possibly have a looming engine problem as well. And talking to the guy, it didn't make it sound like they were actually going to fix the problem, because the problem, I believe, is initially with the way the transmission is programmed to run. And so I think if you put another one in, it would eventually just be broken down the road. And we had some really big trips planned. We're going to Canada and Alaska, and that's the last thing I would need to essentially deal with. It's just really hard to deal with. This is a very difficult situation, and we made it back to our camper, parked at the Amoco. Now it's the moment of truth to see how the truck is going to pull the trailer. My wife is putting everything up. That's what that sound is. And earlier she was putting the jacks up. We now have to go to a campground for the night, where in the morning time we'll take everything out of the truck and put it in the new truck, and then take the broken one to surrender it over at the dealer.
I mean, from what I'm looking at, I think you can. Okay. You might have to pop it up the curb, I don't know. Super tilty. I hate the super tilty.
After the day that we had, I was glad the campground wasn't too far away from where we had to pick up the trailer. It was a little difficult getting into this spot, but the truck did a really good job towing the trailer. I was a little leery of really running it hard because I didn't know how it was going to do, but it did a pretty good job. But now we have to take everything out of our Ford, and our Ford is totally filled up, and then figure out how to get it into this tiny little truck. It's going to be a mission. It might be mission impossible trying to get that in there. Because our trailer has a pretty small water tank compared to our old trailer. I brought extra water, so I'm not really sure how to organize this. I'm thinking I'm gonna put the heavier stuff closer to the cab, but I have no idea how this is all gonna work out. So I'm trying to like think of a plan here, where to start. Fortunately, a lot of this stuff is just in bins. Good lordy. We formulated a much easier plan. We unhooked the Tacoma and we're going to just back up. This is going to work much better. So transmission fluid dripping all over the place. The transmission in the car is slipping in and out of 10, and it's also boiling out of the overflow on the top, and it's shifting really hard in gears between, I think it was like 5 and 6 or something, but also when it's cold it won't go into gear. Yeah, so it's, when we drive down the road you can feel it. It'll just almost go, it feels like it's going in neutral essentially. But this will be a better plan. We need to work smarter, not harder.
Okay.
This is all empty and it fits in there. What? And we got the weights and everything. I don't think it's too heavy yet. What? It was just before it started to rain. I'm gonna have to like close this up to making sure it's not like an illusion. Let's see. That's amazing! How does that fit all in there? No way! We had another little issue. The tire mount completely bent. Not sure how that took place.
Yeah, I have no idea.
So now we just got to get hooked back up, and then we'll take it to the dealer and we'll tell you guys how that went. We turned the truck in. It sounded like when we called Ford Credit that it should be really simple. We just surrender the vehicle, sign a paper, and that would be it. But it didn't go that way. It went a little sideways there. We had to talk to the general manager and kind of got a bad vibe from him and told him what was going on, that we needed to drop the truck off and we were giving the truck back, and that paper that they were supposed to have, and he didn't have that paper. So he went out and took pictures of the truck and had to call his Ford representative to then call Ford Credit so that Ford Credit could send the representative a paper that then he would receive a paper. And then he was trying to make excuses that, well, he didn't have a heads up. Well, I showed him that I called him yesterday, but nobody wanted to help me. No one wanted to return my message. And so supposedly this paper was going to be sent, and my wife said, well, I'm gonna wait 30 minutes. But she ended up waiting 35 minutes and no paper. And we just had enough. This was
It went on for too long.
yeah, it's been really stressful. It's upsetting to have a truck that you put so much work into and traveled so many places, and then just to see it to be sold off and you get, you know, nothing out of that thing, and have to make that decision, you know, and 4 hours from home, so it's not like we could just return back home and leave it there. So we were like, peace out, here's the keys. And so we were starting to drive off. Well, that guy must have like saw that we were leaving and hightailed it and tried to catch up with us before we left.
Yeah, you ever want to light a fire under the guy's butt at the car dealer? Just leave.
Yeah, he's like, well, you can't drive, you can't leave it here. And I was like, we're like, no, we're done. We're done, you can have it. And he's like, well, I'm gonna park it on the street. We're like, fine. And
yeah, I said, it's not my problem anymore. And so then when I called Ford again to tell them, they were like, oh, people all the time drop their cars off in the night drop and just leave them sitting in the parking lot. Yeah. So we did way more above what we needed to do, and he still didn't want to accept the car, so.
Yeah, so I started pulling away, and I might have hit the gas like a little harder than that. And it came like close, but it wasn't like super close. I mean, it was a couple feet. Man, he screamed. He thought I was gonna run him over the trailer. And then my wife was like hanging out the window. Sorry, it's a new car. We don't know how to drive it. I mean, it was like, I think it was like 3 feet away from him. He screamed. They probably heard him inside.
Yeah, they probably did.
It was a loud scream.
It was a girly scream. It was not a manly scream.
He was so mad. He was infuriated. And it's so funny. Like, why is it always about them? Like, they don't care that your vehicle, which is an $80,000 vehicle, went to crap right after 100,000 miles.
Yeah.
And not only that, the engine went on, or the transmission went on it, but the engine, we think it might have a bent rod in it too. And
so when I looked up what the repair is for a bent rod, it said engine replacement. That is now considered a catastrophic engine failure. So, you know, we weren't gonna put $9,000 in a transmission, and then in a couple of weeks, or maybe, you know, honestly, 2 more days on our journey, then the engine blows while we're driving down the road, and have to do that too. That's too much.
so we're driving right now to Missouri to do some camping, and definitely need to relax.